Emily Carter never planned to come home early that Friday night. Her conference in Seattle had ended faster than expected. And instead of staying another evening with coworkers, she booked the late flight back to Portland. She wanted to surprise Daniel. Lately, he had been distant, and she missed him. She missed the way he used to laugh without thinking, the way he used to pull her close in the kitchen while she was cooking. Something had changed in him over the past month, and she couldn't name it. So she decided to do something simple. Come home, hug him, remind him they were okay. The air was cold when she stepped out of the cab in front of their apartment building. The sky was dark and heavy with rain. Streetlights reflected on the wet pavement, turning everything gold and blurred. She smiled to herself as she dragged her suitcase inside. Daniel had texted her earlier, "Call me when you land." She didn't. She wanted to see his face instead. The hallway smelled faintly of old carpet and someone's late dinner. She reached their door, balancing her suitcase upright, and slipped her key into the lock. But the door wasn't locked. It opened slightly when she pushed. Her heart skipped. Daniel was careful. He never forgot to lock the door. She stepped inside slowly. "Daniel." She called softly. No answer. The living room lamp was on. The rest of the apartment was quiet. No TV, no music. Just silence. She closed the door behind her and stood still, listening. That's when she heard it. A sound she had never heard from him before. Not loud, not dramatic. A broken breath. Like someone trying to breathe through pain. Her stomach tightened. It came from the bedroom. She walked down the hallway carefully, her pulse rising with each step. The bedroom door was slightly open. A thin line of warm light spilled onto the floor. She moved closer. Then she saw him. Daniel sat on the edge of the bed, his back slightly curved, his elbows resting on his knees. His phone was in his hand. His shoulders shook once, just once, as if he was fighting something inside. And then she saw the tears. They fell quietly, without noise, down his face. Emily froze. Not even during their worst arguments. He wiped his face, fast, almost embarrassed him. "What are you doing here? I wanted to surprise you." He stood up too quickly. "You should have told me." She was staring at his face. "What's wrong?" "Nothing," he said too fast. She walked closer. "Don't do that, not now." Rain tapped softly against the glass. "It's fine," he said. She noticed his hands still holding the phone tightly. "What's on your phone?" He hesitated. That hesitation scared her more than anything else. "Daniel?" He swallowed hard. His jaw tightened. The subject line was simple. Test results. Her chest felt tight. "Test." He didn't answer right away. "They found something a few weeks ago," he said finally. "I had some headaches. I went in. They did scans. I didn't think it was serious." She stared at him. "Daniel?" she whispered. "What did they find?" He looked at her like he was afraid she might disappear. A tumor. The word hit her like cold water. "You had scans weeks ago. And you didn't tell me?" He looked down. She stared at him, trying to process everything at once. "You've known for weeks. I didn't want to panic you for nothing. And now it's confirmed." The room felt smaller. He nodded. She looked at his face again. The late nights, the quiet mood. He laughed once, but it wasn't humor. "I thought I could." "Why?" "Because I didn't want you to feel trapped." Her head snapped up. "Trapped. You have your whole life ahead of you." She stood up again, anger mixing with fear. "For me?" He blinked. "You don't get to protect me by pushing me away," she continued, her voice shaking. "That's not love." He took a step toward her. "I wasn't pushing you away. We're losing interest." "I thought maybe there was someone else." His face fell. "Emily, no." "Then why didn't you trust me?" He opened his mouth, then closed it again. Answer was simple. "I was scared," he admitted. She looked at him and saw not her strong, steady boyfriend. She saw a man terrified of losing. "How bad is it?" she asked quietly. "They say it's early." That's the good part, but it's still surgery. Still my brain. His voice cracked on the last word. That broke her. Without thinking, she wrapped her arms around him. At first, he stayed stiff. Then, slowly, he collapsed into her embrace. His hands gripped her back tightly. He started to cry again, this time without trying to hide it. She held him tighter. I didn't know how to tell you, he said against her shoulder. Every time I tried, I pictured your face. I couldn't do it. You don't get to carry this alone, she whispered. I didn't want to be weak. She pulled back just enough to look at him. You think this is weak? Answer, you're human, she said softly. That's not weakness. He looked exhausted. The strong lines of his face seemed softer, almost fragile. When do they want to do surgery? She asked. In 2 weeks. 2 weeks, she repeated. I wanted to wait until after your trip. Her chest tightened again. So you sent me away while you sat here with this? He didn't defend himself this time. She took a slow breath. The future she had imagined earlier, that day's simple dinner, warm hug, easy night, was gone. Now there were hospital forms, risks, recovery, fear. But beneath all that, there was something else, clarity. She cupped his face gently in her hands. Look at me. He did. You don't get to push me out of this, she said firmly. You're scared. We'll be scared together. He searched her eyes as if looking for doubt. There wasn't any. I thought if I handled it alone, you wouldn't have to see me like this, he said. She brushed her thumb across his cheek. Like what? Broken. She shook her head slowly. You're not broken. He let out a shaky breath. For a long moment, they just stood there, holding each other while the rain continued outside. The apartment felt different now. Not smaller, just more real. What happens next? She asked quietly. I meet with the surgeon next week. Explain everything. Okay, she said. Okay, he repeated. Yes, we'll go together. He hesitated. Emily, no. She cut in gently. No more secrets. No more trying to protect me by shutting me out. He nodded slowly. She took his hand and guided him back to sit on the bed. You scared me tonight, she admitted. No. I thought I lost you already. His fingers tightened around hers. You haven't. She looked at him carefully. Promise me something. What? If you're afraid, tell me. Don't hide it. He took a deep breath. I'm afraid. The honesty in those words hit her harder than the diagnosis. He let out a small, real laugh through tears. That doesn't help. It does, she said. Because now you're not alone in it. The storm outside grew louder, rain hitting the windows in steady rhythm. Emily leaned her head against his shoulder. Everything had changed in a single night. But strangely, something else had changed too. The distance she had felt before was gone. In its place was something raw, honest, real. She didn't know what the surgery would bring. She didn't know how hard the next weeks would be. But she knew one thing clearly as she sat beside him in that quiet room. She had caught him in a moment he never meant for her to see. And instead of breaking them, it had opened the door to something deeper than either of them expected. The first night after Daniel told her the truth, Emily did not sleep. She lay beside him in the dark, listening to his breathing. Every small movement made her open her eyes. The word tumor echoed in her mind, sharp and cold, but she did not let fear take control. When morning came, she got up before him, made coffee, and stood at the kitchen window watching the gray Portland sky. She knew one thing, clearly she would not let him face this alone again. When Daniel walked into the kitchen, he looked tired but calmer. He studied her face as if expecting anger or regret. She gave him neither. She handed him a cup of coffee and said, "We make a plan today." He blinked, surprised by her steady tone. She pulled out her laptop, opened a notebook, and wrote down questions for the surgeon. Treatment options, recovery time, risks, nutrition, support groups. She moved, fast, focused. Daniel watched her with something close to disbelief. He had spent weeks drowning in silent fear. Now, the fear had structure. The surgeon appointment came quickly. The hospital smelled too clean, too bright. Emily held Daniel's hand as they sat in the waiting room. She felt his palm grow damp. He stared straight ahead, jaw tight. She squeezed his fingers once. "Breathe," she whispered. He nodded. The surgeon explained everything in simple terms. The tumor was small. It had been found early. Surgery would remove it. There were risks, but the chances were good. Recovery would take weeks. There might be headaches, might be mood changes. There might be memory gaps at first. Daniel listened quietly. Emily asked questions without hesitation. She wrote everything down: dates, instructions, next steps. When they left the office, Daniel exhaled deeply, like a man stepping out of deep water. In the car, silence filled the space. Finally, he said, "You didn't have to take control like that." She looked at him calmly. "Yes, I did." He turned toward her. "Why?" She started the engine and answered without drama. "Because you're my person." The words were simple, but they settled something inside him. The days before surgery moved fast. Emily rearranged her work schedule. She informed her manager. She would be remote for a while. She filled their fridge with healthy meals, cleaned the apartment until it felt fresh and ready. Daniel tried to joke about her becoming Drill Sergeant Emily, but she saw the gratitude in his eyes. At night, though, when the lights were off, his hand searched for hers under the blanket. He never said it, but the fear lived in that. Small gesture. The night before surgery, rain returned. It felt like a strange pattern in their story. Daniel stood by the window, watching the city lights blur. "What if I'm different after?" he asked quietly. Emily walked to him. "Different doesn't mean gone," she replied. He swallowed. "What if I forget things?" She reached up and touched his face. "Then I'll remind you." He searched her expression for doubt. He found none. At the hospital the next morning, everything moved quickly. Paperwork, nurses, bright lights, a thin hospital gown that made him look fragile. Emily stayed close. When they wheeled him toward the operating room, he gripped her hand tightly. "Stay," he said. "I'm not going anywhere," she answered. The doors closed between them. The waiting was the hardest part. Hours stretched long and empty. Emily sat alone, hands clasped, staring at nothing. She did not cry. She refused to let panic win. She replayed memories instead, how they met at a friend's barbecue in Chicago years ago. How he burned the first dinner he tried to cook for her. How he held her during her own hard days. She realized something important during that long wait. Love was not about comfort. It was about choice. And she had already chosen. When the surgeon finally walked into the waiting room, Emily stood so fast her chair scraped the floor. The doctor smiled gently. "It went well." The words felt unreal. The tumor had been removed completely. They would run tests, but it looked promising. Relief hit her so hard she had to sit down again. Seeing Daniel in recovery shocked her. He looked pale, tubes attached, eyes heavy. But when he saw her, he tried to smile. It was weak, but it was there. She leaned down and kissed his forehead. "You did it?" she whispered. He murmured something unclear. She stayed by his bed. For hours. The first days after surgery were slow. It was groggy. His head hurt. Sometimes he struggled to find words. Once he forgot the nurse's name seconds after hearing it. That moment scared him. "What if this doesn't go away?" he asked. Emily kept her voice steady. Healing takes time. She did not let him see her brief flash of worry. Instead, she read to him, adjusted his pillows, helped him walk short steps down the hospital hallway. When they finally returned home, everything felt different. The apartment that once felt ordinary now felt like a place of recovery. Emily set up a small space in the living room with blankets, water, medicine, and books. Daniel moved slowly, carefully. There were moments he grew frustrated. Once he snapped, at her when she reminded him to take his medication. Immediately, regret filled his face. "I'm sorry," he said. She shook her head. "You're healing. It's okay." She meant it. Weeks passed, stitches healed, headaches faded. His memory sharpened again. With each small improvement, hope grew stronger. They went on short walks outside. Fresh air felt like victory. One afternoon, sitting on a park bench, Daniel looked at her and said, "You didn't have to stay." She answered calmly, "Stop saying that." He shook his head. "I tried to push you away because I thought you deserved easier." She looked at him firmly. "I don't want easier. I want real." Treatment did not end with surgery. There were follow-up appointments, scans, and preventive therapy. Some days drained him completely. On those days, Emily lay beside him quietly. They didn't always talk. They didn't need to. The silence between them was no longer heavy. It was steady. One evening, after a long hospital visit, they sat in the car outside their building again. The engine was off this time. The sky was clear. Daniel stared ahead and said, "I thought I was protecting you before. But really, I was protecting myself from seeing your fear." Emily considered that. "I was afraid," she admitted. "But hiding it wouldn't have made it smaller." He nodded slowly. He had learned that lesson. Months moved forward. Strength returned. His laughter returned. But something else had changed too. They talked more openly now. About everything. Money, marriage, children, dreams they once postponed. Illness had stripped away their hesitation. There was no point in pretending life was endless. The day of his final major scan arrived quietly. They didn't tell many people. They didn't make it dramatic. They just went together. Sitting in the doctor's office again felt familiar now. Less terrifying, still serious. When the doctor entered with a smile, Emily felt her heartbeat. In her throat. "No sign of remaining cancer," he said. "You're in remission." The word hung in the air like sunlight breaking through clouds. Daniel closed his eyes briefly. Emily felt tears finally rise after months of holding them back. This time, she let them fall. They walked out of the hospital into bright daylight. That felt different from any before. That evening, back home, Daniel stood in the kitchen watching her prepare dinner. There was something thoughtful in his expression. "I saw you that first night," he said suddenly. She looked up. "You walked into the bedroom," he continued. "I thought that was the worst moment of my life, but it wasn't." She tilted her head slightly. "It was the moment I realized how much you love me." She set down the knife and stepped closer. "You think I didn't already know?" she asked softly. He shook his head. "I thought love meant protecting you from pain. You showed me it. Means letting you in." She smiled gently. "We helped each other." He reached for her hand. "I'm not afraid of the future anymore," he said. She squeezed his fingers. "Neither am I." Later that night, they sat on the balcony, cool air around them. The city lights stretched below. Everything felt simple. No dramatic music, no grand speeches, just peace. Daniel leaned back in his chair. "If this ever comes back," he began. She cut him off gently. "If it does, we face it." He nodded. There was no fear in his eyes now, only understanding. The illness had not broken them. It burned away everything false. What remained was stronger, cleaner, certain. Emily looked at him and remembered the man she had found crying alone on the edge of their bed. She remembered the fear in his voice, the weight he tried to carry by himself. She also remembered the choice she made in that moment to step forward instead of away. Now, watching him laugh softly at something on his phone, she felt proud. Not of surviving something dramatic, but of loving without hesitation. Daniel turned toward her suddenly. "What are you thinking?" he asked. She smiled. "That catching you in that moment was the best thing that ever happened to us." Walked over and pulled her into his arms. "You saved me," he said quietly. She rested her head against his chest. No, she corrected. We chose each other. Okay, and this time there were no secrets between them.